Well, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday, um, January 25th, 2023, and I'm broadcasting from 10 area, and I had a full day over at the Capitol, so we're coming in a little late today, but just wanted to let you know a few things that are going on up here, and then get into a smaller devotional. I'm not going to do a full teaching, but I did want to get to tell you what's going on. Oh, just there's a couple of things that I've been talking about has been the gods of the nations. And, we've been studying about that kind of stuff and how Israel's God is Jehovah Elohim, who is the God of gods. And so then you have the other nations around them that have gods, like Canaan's God was Baal. And then you had Ashereth, and you also had Molech, which was part of the same, and it's called the Dark Trinity. And I'm getting part of this from Jonathan Cahn's new book. It's called The Return of the Gods. And it was really amazing because I was driving up to the Capitol and I saw that on YouTube and I tuned in and played the video. It was really interesting because he was talking about how our nation has now declined from being a Christian centric nation to now a pagan nation. And basically, there's been a real push for a secular society, and it's never a secular society because anytime you have other gods, then you have people. Anytime you have the Christian God, either taken out of our society, then there's other gods that will come in and take over. So the first god was Baal. Baal is actually called the master, or or Lord, the one that takes over everything. And so that was really interesting because since 1963, there seems to be a takeover. Western civilization has been preserved because of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And because of the teachings that the church has brought, we have been preserved for so many, for since 1700s. And so now that we don't have a God and we have become secular, so now we have this dominant God that's come in to take over. And it's because the God has been kicked out of the schools, been kicked out of all of secular society, and now we have a vacuum. And like Jesus taught that, once the house has been swept clean and the demon has been cast out, if nothing else fills that, then there's going to be more demons come in to take over, or gods that'll come in and take over, which is really interesting. So the next step in doing that is the next god is actually a goddess, which is Ishtar, or the Ashereth, the gods of the Ashereth. And with that one, it is a sexualization of the nation. And we've seen that happen with our, transgender move and push with the LGBTQ community. It's been amazing to see some of that take place. And so the sexualization in the media, in the movies, everywhere, it is now upon us. I mean, we cannot get away from that at all. Absolutely not at all. You see that we are living in Sodom and Gomorrah tendencies today, and it's just amazing. We don't see that in the rural areas as much and as openly as we see that here in the city. I have encountered that like many times already today, and not only, and so I'm finding out that there are some intimate kind of things that were going on in my presence twice. The others were you just knew that it was there, but it was just amazing to see that, So there's a sexualization in the transformation, transgenderism, and transformation of our society, but there's also a transformation of the sexuality that's in our society. And we see that with the transgender community and how they're grooming the children and letting them and telling them that they can't have, they're non-binary, and they don't acknowledge the fact that God created us as male and female. And so we see that one. The other one, which was really interesting, and this is all part of Jonathan Cahn's book, but I have been studying on the gods and how the gods have come in and invaded our country. And it's true, because we were under the teachings of Christianity over the years. I mean, hundreds of years. And it's been amazing. Western civilization was based on Christian teachings and the gospel. So that has changed. That has changed amazingly. So the other thing that I find is the next god is the god of Molech. Now we understand the god of Molech to is the one that human sacrifice is given to, and we find that that's the basis of abortion. But that's not the only thing. The god of Molech is actually the destroyer, and he is coming in to destroy the gender. The gender it was created by God. The other thing that is destroyed is the family unit, and the destroying the family unit with a father and a mother. So now we have all these these pronouns, and we can't give into that. I mean, we can't give into that, and I know that in the rural communities we don't. It's more in the cities that they think that we need to accept some of that. I see a lot of that in the areas that I'm in right now. So it's just amazing. So that's where we're at right now. The only thing that can really change this, and it's going to be up to the Lord. I know that we're under the judgment of God right now with all of what's going on. All we have to do is read Romans chapter 1 and see how that is really being accomplished. It is amazing to see that the judgment of God is to allow all these things to happen to us because it will destroy us. It's a natural process that God has allowed, and it's just happening around us. So the only thing that can really change this is going to be revival. I mean, a full-blown revival in the nation to where people are repenting of their sins and walking in the ways of God, acknowledging the fact that, yes, I have done wrong in the eyes of God and I need to repent. I need to ask for forgiveness. And I need to, be born again by asking Jesus into my heart for real. None of this religious fluff that is going on around in our country today where people are changing the face of Christianity. And that, by the way, is part of that transformation that that Ashereth is doing. In fact, part of her religion, Ashereth, and is part of her name, is to be transformed. And in ancient documents, it talks about the Ashereth to be able to. She was transformative. That meant that she could become a man, or she could become a woman at any time, and so that she could fulfill the pleasures of both man and a woman, which is really, it's outside of the knowledge of God. So I don't see anybody checking in right now, and I'm wondering what's happening. This is kind of strange. So I'm going to check to see what's going on there. But on the other side of that, so that's kind of my introduction. I do have a brief that I want to kind of share of what's happening here at the Capitol. It's a whole new landscape out here. It seems like the Republicans are responding differently now that we have a pseudo governor who is a Democrat, and there's just a different it's just a different response that's taking place. I see it. I don't, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it to be able to address it. I know that God has not given us a spirit of fear. We cannot fear what the outcomes are and not compromise on, the kind of issues that are coming in our direction. Um, so we need to be united. And this morning I was able to give a prayer on education and how important it is to educate our children in the ways of the Lord. And I got a few folks coming up and talk to me about that because we know that the left wants to indoctrinate the children. We know that the left, like Alexander the Great, he says, "Give me the children, and I will change. I will change the world." And so that was part of my prayer today, that we need to go back to teaching our children the ways of God. I think it's really important that we, do that, is to be able to to be able to teach the children the ways of the Lord. Our education system is not going to do that. Hello, who's that? Let's see, somebody's coming in and out. So that's one of the things that we need to acknowledge, is that things have, those kind of things has changed. Now, as far as border security, the real thing that we're dealing with right now is going to be budgetary things. Nothing can get done without money. And so the governor has, or the governor's office has asked for some budget requests. And I just can't see some of this kind of stuff that needs to be spent in that direction. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in that area. Election integrity is still something that's very high in my book. We also have the border. The governor is saying that it's a human right for people to be able to come into our country and then be relocated with Arizona tax dollars. I don't agree with that at all. I think that we need to stop them at the border, and then, the whole thing. You know where we stand on that. Um, Inflation. There's a lot of things that are there's in. We're going to be hitting a recession here, I believe, pretty quick, and it's going to hit us, and so we're going to be looking at that. We have education, abortion, water, and rural life that we're dealing with right now, and really trying to address some of that as we move out in that area. So just a quick note, I want to shift gears just a little bit. In Gideon, I mean, in the book of Judges, in chapter 7, this was when Gideon went ahead and he overcame the Midianites. The Midianites had overtaken. They had conquered Israel. I'll tell you what, folks, we are getting conquered. We are getting conquered. We have ignored God. We have ignored his teachings. We no longer regard his, a marriage. We are coming against our children by grooming them and that kind of stuff. We're in trouble. And I do believe that God's going to hand us over to the enemy is really what's going to happen and is happening. However, at one point, and one point in this whole judgment scenario, what we're going to find is that God is going to call for those who will rise up and stand up for the truth. And I think that that's going to be really important, because that's exactly what Gideon did, is he rose up and he stood up for the truth. And he came against the Midianites. The Midianites had disarmed them, they were taking their food. They went into a deep recession and depression economically. This is Israel that I'm talking about. So God calls Gideon, and Gideon goes through this whole process of commitment, loyalty, sanctification, and then he calls on the people to fight with him. And then God reduces his number to 300. And the 300 are the ones that really are the tip of the spear, because they go ahead and attack Midian. And then Gideon puts the enemy to rout. I mean, the enemy is fleeing from Gideon, and so a couple of the kings have been taken over. So Gideon goes ahead and calls Ephraim, one of the tribes, and says, "Help us. We need your help to go ahead and conquer the Midianites." So there was like five kings that had gathered together. There was to come against Israel. Well, the Ephraim, the well, hello everybody. Here I am again. I was just telling the story of Gideon and how he went ahead and conquered the Midianites. Um, God had called Gideon to go ahead and go after the Midianites. And sometimes what is part of the story here is that after they went ahead and they really they attacked the Midianites, and the army was fleeing. The Midianite army had been scattered. There was four of the kings. They left in different directions. Now Gideon had called the Ephraim to go ahead and help. They captured two of the kings and killed them, and then so there's always internal problems, whether it's a church, family, or political organization. There's always going to be There's always going to be internal problems that take place, and this is what happened with Gideon: is that Ephraim came up to him and said, "Look, we just killed two of the kings. Why didn't you call us before?" I guess they were feeling their oats that they were able to kill the kings, and they thought that they should have been called, before then. Now, the battle was still raging. This was still going on, and now Gideon has an internal problem going on because the Ephraim was feeling like, "Hey, you should have called us. I'm feeling a little offended that you didn't call us into the battle." And so, was Ephraim doing that because they felt like they were ignored and they weren't appreciated? That's going to have to be something that we all think about, because every once in a while we feel like that we were not acknowledged, and so we feel like we were ignored, and then we tend to blame leadership for some of that kind of problem. One of the things that I find is that so Gideon had to deal with that. And so he said, "Look, God has given you the two kings. I wasn't able to do that." Now, Gideon started the battle, but he wasn't able to finish it. He was able to, bring confusion into the camp and bring the momentum of victory into the battlefield. But he was not able to really get a hold of those two kings. It was Ephraim that took that first. So Ephraim they were feeling, big and bad, and Gideon had to deal with that internal problem. So he tells them, "Look, I haven't been able to do what you have done. God had gave you the two kings. I didn't do that. You did it." So Gideon was wise in acknowledging their accomplishments in the battle, and they were kind of placated, but not enough. So then Gideon turns around and he says, "But look at you guys. You guys are the ones that are produce the most quality wines. Your harvests are just amazing. You guys are just amazing, an amazing tribe." And so just with that acknowledgement of the tribe, Gideon was able to, calm that element down, and then he went off to chase the other two kings. And you'll find that takes place in life, that you have to deal with those problems. You've got your goal in mind, but you've got to stop. You've got to deal with problems. You've got to deal with situations, and then continue your battle with the enemy. So Gideon continues his battle with the enemy, and he does capture the other two kings eventually. But his men were tired. His men were hungry, and he approached the first community, and he asked for help, and they did not give it to him. And he told them, "Look, when I get back, I'm going to deal with you for not helping us in the cause." Now, this is a community within Israel's borders. So, I believe. I'm really pretty sure that that's within Israel's borders. And then so then he goes to the next community, and they did the same thing with him. So they went on without getting any food or rest. They were tired, they were hungry, but they continued to chase the enemy down. God had guaranteed him that he would have victory. And so off they went, and they captured the other two kings, and they were able to kill them and gain the victory over the enemy of God's people. So on his way back, as he had promised these two communities, he went ahead and he attacked those two communities and completely did away with their men, because these men would not help him with the cause. And and a lot of times I think that that's some of the things that we have to deal with. I've one of the things that I've done several times over the years is we've had a cleansing of the church rolls, and even in the Chamber of Commerce, and I do believe that this needs to take place in the Republican Party, is that we have to cleanse the rolls. If people are not committed to the cause, we have to cleanse the rolls. Sometimes you have to go from 32,000 people down to 300 to be able to get the quality of men and women to be able to do the kind of job that God is calling you to do. And it's not easy. It's a lot easier to go ahead and build a feel good, a feel good church with where you're dealing with all of the feel good kind of stuff. All the puppy dog tails, flowers and bunnies kind of messages that make you feel good. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for being able to establish the truth, bring forth that truth, so that revival may break loose, so that we can see a change in our society. And we haven't seen that. We really haven't seen that for a while. It's been probably, it's been about 40 years that, no, it's getting close to 50 years that we haven't seen a really true revival sweep across the nation. And that's exactly what we're needing today. We need to get out and preach the truth, preach the gospel, hold strong to the decisions that we're making, both in our communities, and for me, in legislature at the state level. The federal level is up to somebody else, and we need to be able to continue to move on in that direction. So that's part of the message today. I just want to say it's great to be out here. I'm glad that I'm able to come to you from Tempe, Arizona, in my little place that I stay here as I do my legislative work. And you see my little poster back here. It says Arizona. It's kind of a nice little poster. And so God bless you. Look at your loyalty. God doesn't want fence sitters. He said if we are lukewarm, he would spit us out of our mouth. He would rather have us cold or hot. He wants to know what side we're standing on. And I think that's really an important thing to be able to look at within our own lives. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. God bless you. If you have any requests for prayer, concerns, please, personal message me. I can call you back. There's a lot of things I can do in that area. So we'll see you. And we'll catch up with you, many of you, this Sunday for service at 10:15 at Grace Chapel in Benson. See ya. Bye-bye.